Hi, my name is Pam Colleen, and welcome to my podcast, Circadian Reboot, where we discuss everything circadian. And today is the third installment of the series of interviews I did with Morley Robbins, founder of the Root Cause Protocol. We were a little rushed at the end, so we didn't get to cover everything we wanted to cover. So we're going to probably do at least another installment to this series. And I should be publishing that over the next month or so. For those of you who don't know who Morley Robbins is, he is also known as the Magnesium Man. He is a leading researcher and educator in mineral metabolism with a special focus on the profound role of magnesium, copper, and iron balance in chronic illness. After a successful 32-year career in the healthcare industry, Morley turned his attention to the root causes of disease, uncovering the critical importance of mineral balancing in cellular energy production and oxidative stress management. He is the creator of the Root Cause Protocol, a comprehensive approach designed to restore mineral harmony and support deep healing at the foundational level. Through his work, Morley has helped thousands of individuals and practitioners worldwide better understand how mineral dysregulation underlies many modern health conditions, from fatigue and anxiety to autoimmune disorders and neurodegeneration. I'm really excited to collaborate with Morley as I've been a mineral balancing practitioner since 2009 and truly believe that when practitioners who share the same goals work together, especially those who understand the critical role minerals like copper and iron play in our overall health, they can maximize their ability to help clients heal. As I mentioned, Morley and I are planning on continuing this interview series with each conversation building on the last. Our goal is to give people who are struggling with complex chronic illness more tools for their healing journey and hopefully help them move through the process a little faster and with more confidence. Morley Robbins, thank you so much for joining me in podcast number 3 of our series. And I want to start off today by telling you kind of a funny story. I did a little 90-second reel featuring you in one of our interviews, and it was actually censored on TikTok. So there's another badge of honor for us. That's my second one that was censored on TikTok. My first one that was censored had to do with population control. So 2 badges of honor on my part, and there's one
What
check
were we
for
talking
you.
about?
So
What were we talking about that
it
got
was
them
the
all worked up?
1984 snippet that I took from our first podcast, I think it was, and you were
Oh, that's
talking about
terrific.
escaping the healthcare matrix. And
Right.
at any rate, so I guess the TikTok people didn't like what you had to say.
Or whoever runs those people. Yeah, exactly. That's okay. I mean,
Yeah, well, we can be proud of ourselves.
what's the expression about the truth becoming an enemy of the state?
Exactly. Exactly. But at
Right.
least it's still on YouTube and wherever else I posted it. So it didn't get censored from there. And I was censored on YouTube many years ago. But
That's funny.
right now my account's still alive. So yeah.
I would think it would be more on YouTube than TikTok. That's very funny. Okay,
Yeah.
whatever.
I guess they don't like anything that touches on the totalitarian state or depopulation. So now we know.
Now we know. That's right. Keep that in mind.
At any rate, thank you for joining me again today for part 3. And I think we can
Yeah.
just try to tie everything together that we spoke about in the first 2 episodes. One of the issues that I think we didn't talk about, I think that we should probably address today, is the controversy around vitamin D and taking vitamin D supplementation. I don't think we've actually discussed it, and yet it is a big
No.
topic. So if you don't mind, maybe we can start with that.
Sure, that'd be fine. Again, I'm a pretty simple guy, and I try to keep it simple. But the whole idea behind the RCP, the root cause protocol, it's very singular focused. It's um, it's really designed to help people increase the amount of bioavailable copper in their body, and the protein that represents bioavailable copper that nobody talks about is called ceruloplasmin. And cerulo is a French word for sky blue. And that color blue attracts red light. It's a very important color in the body. And why is that red light important? It's because the complex 4 of our mitochondria. So you have the Krebs cycle, and you have the electron transport chain. And when the electron transport chain, which is complexes 1 through 4, get attached and connected to complex 5, you have what's called oxidative phosphorylation. And complex 4 is sky blue. Complex 4 attracts red light to prevent nitric oxide from blocking the final stage of converting oxygen into water. And when that does happen, when water is produced, we can release energy. You can't release energy unless the pH is 7.0. So it's all these different factors come together, light and pH and minerals and what have you. It's fascinating. And so then along comes this metabolite, vitamin D. And the part that I think a lot of people miss is most of the programming, the conventional programming that we've been exposed to, is all a falsehood. You know, the idea that cholesterol causes heart disease. No. The idea that anemia is only iron deficiency. No. The idea that taking calcium will help you with your osteoporosis. And I could go on. When I got to 36 metabolic lies in the narrative, I said, okay, the whole narrative is off. It's backwards. And so that's when I started to say, what does it take to build health and energy in the human body? And so it was this meticulous fact-checking against the narrative. The narrative is completely corrupt. There's no aspect. People want to believe that, well, yeah, they got that wrong. They got that fluoride thing they got wrong. Yeah, they got that, whatever, the sugar thing wrong or whatever. It's like all these things that they got wrong, but oh my gosh, I've got to protect the vitamin D. And I swear, I do not understand the brainwashing that has taken place with that one supplement. Do we need vitamin D? Of course we need vitamin D. Do we need it as a standalone supplement that is hyper added to our diet? Absolutely not. One of the principal criteria for consideration in the root cause protocol is, there's two questions really. Is this nutrient helping to increase the bioavailability of copper? Is it helping to produce more ceruloplasma? And is it going to help produce more energy? Well, when you get into the weeds of it, we're very much opposed to, big supplementation of zinc. Zinc has nothing to do with energy and everything to do with killing copper. It's really good at it. It's very, very effective at killing copper. Iron, we can't live without it. But this idea that we're all anemic is part of the lie, part of the narrative. And the messaging that's online and in the doctor's office is, if you're fatigued, take more iron. It's the worst thing you can do, because iron is going to block copper uptake. It's going to block bioavailability of copper, what have you. Then we get to retinol. The part that people don't know about is the research by Dr. Hammerling from 2016, 2019, 2021. Guy's a genius. But what he pointed out in 2016 is that there's something inside our mitochondria. This gets very technical. It's like people want to know, but they don't want to know too much. They're like, well, that's uncomfortable because I've never heard that before. But it's like, get over it. It's what retinol is a part of is something called the signalosome, like signal, ozome, S-O-M-E. And it's a quadrant. It's a rectangle that hangs between complex 3 and complex 4. And it's regulating the movement of electrons from complex 3 to complex 4 so that we can make water, so we can release energy. And one of the most important parts of the signalosome is the retinol molecule. And look it up. It's a really cool looking molecule. It's like a dinosaur. It's got this razorback, series of carbons, and the electrons flow down those carbons to go from complex 3 to complex 4 to ensure that there's adequate electron flow into complex 4. So oxygen that's being held and worked with in complex 4 becomes water. So O2, you had 4 electrons, you had 4 hydrogen protons, and voila, you get 2 molecules of water. It's a miracle. I think it's the most important chemical reaction on the planet, and apparently it's not taught anywhere, at least outside of the root cause protocol. And why is this so important? Well, what Dr. Hammerling figured out is that if you don't have retinol, you're going to get cancer. The lack of retinol at that point in the mitochondria is what's called the Warburg effect. And people have heard of that phrase, but they don't know what it means. Otto Warburg was obviously a very gifted scientist and clinician from the 1930s up until his death in the 1980s. And the only reason why Hitler kept him on board was because he was convinced he was going to be able to cure cancer. Because most people don't know this. Both of Hitler's parents died of cancer. He was terrified he was going to get cancer and die. And so he kept Warburg around as his insurance policy.
Wow.
And what's fascinating is that Warburg gets nominated 52 times for a Nobel Prize. 52 times. He got 1. Why did he only get 1? Because Hitler said 1 was enough. He said, be grateful. You're a German Jew. You shouldn't even be alive. I mean, it's amazing stuff. The history behind this is amazing. But in any event, back to your question, what's wrong with this vitamin D thing? Well, there are many things wrong. And for those precious few who really want to do a deeper dive on the rcp123.org website, there's a masterclass on vitamin D that we did back in 2020. So it's, oh my gosh, it's almost 5 years old now, because it was November of 2020. It was around my birthday. And it was sharing about 12 to 15 different studies that no one ever knows about with the downside of vitamin D, of which there are many downsides. And everything that you think about vitamin D being faster than a speeding bullet, more powerful than a locomotive, is based on biased research that is based on correlation, not on causation. Like, you don't want to hear that. Oh, that doesn't, that. My doctor, though, But the thing is, it's a very simple mechanism in our gut that takes up vitamin A and vitamin D. And it's binary. Either it's going to take A or D. It can't take both. And so when you're flooding your body with thousands of IUs of hormone D, it's not a vitamin, it's a hormone. When you're flooding the body with hormone D, it shuts down retinol uptake, which then leads to the what? Oh yeah, the Warburg effect. Now the Warburg effect was actually coined, it was actually after Dr. Warburg's death, the concept of the Warburg effect. But he had studied it very carefully in the 30s and 40s and 50s. But he didn't put his name on it. It was another scientist who I'm blanking on right now. But the fact of the matter is, when was vitamin A deficiency first identified as the cause, not correlated, the cause of cancer? What year was it? 1925. Montrose T. Burroughs, celebrated graduate of Johns Hopkins University Medical School in 1909, working at the Rockefeller Institute. Your sphincter should be tightening up right about now. Very smart guy. And he realizes, oh my gosh, if you withhold retinol, you're going to get cancer. And so he followed up that article in 1925 with 4 articles in 1926. Wow. Maybe he knew a thing or two. And then one of the most contested Nobel Prizes was in 1926. And it was between Otto Warburg and I'm blanking on the one who actually received the award. I'll think of it in a minute. But in any event, the issue was what causes cancer? Is it a virus or is it a metabolic problem? And Warburg was very clear it's a metabolic problem. And oh my gosh, I'm so embarrassed I can't think of his name. In any event, he ends up getting the Nobel Prize in 1927, a year after they debated it for almost a year. And he gets the Nobel Prize for his viral theory of cancer. So that was a century ago, folks. And the individual I was trying to think of was Johannes Fibiger. Johannes Fibiger. Fibiger. Johannes Fibiger.
Again, that goes back to the Warburg part of this discussion. So thank you for finding his name.
But the point is, you've got Montrose T. Burroughs, 1925. 4 articles, Montrose T. Burroughs, 1926. You have this award of the 1926 Nobel going to Fibiger, but in 26 they couldn't reach a conclusion. In 27, he was awarded the Nobel Prize, much to the rage of Warburg. And then Fibiger went one step farther. This is. I mean, I get lost in the history because I think it's really important for people to understand how these decisions really evolved. So in 1927, he gets the Nobel Prize and he goes, wait a minute, maybe it isn't a virus. Maybe, in fact, it's retinol. He writes an article in 1927 that validates what Montrose T. Burroughs is saying. And within like 6 months of writing that article, he's dead. Now, did he just die naturally? Well, I don't know. He was born in 67, so he was 33. He was in his late 50s when he died, that's pretty young, to be honest. But the point is, a lot of confusion about this cancer thing, its relationship to parasites, its relationship to vitamin A, and not many people know that. In other words, thinks they're really hip because they know about ivermectin and whatever.
Fenbendazole.
Thank you.
Fen-Ben, yeah.
Fen-Ben. And it's old news, folks. It's very old news. I mean, Hulda Clark knew it was parasites. Everyone, and here's the part you don't know about. Maybe you don't. I shouldn't be so presumptuous. Most people don't know that when you have parasites in your body, it's a clinical sign of copper deficiency. And when you have copper deficiency, you will get parasites. That's a fact. It's not me. It's animal husbandry has known this for centuries. The animal isn't hanging right, isn't doing right, has signs of parasites.
I remember visiting the islands years ago, and I forget which island I was on, but obviously it's a warmer climate. People are probably more prone to parasites, and they said it's part of their culture to do a parasite cleanse at least once a year.
Oh, that's exactly right. But the thing is, people don't realize how central copper is to our physiology on 100 different levels. And all we're told is it's toxic. We cannot exist on this planet with the oxygen that's on this planet, with the iron that's on this planet, with all the pathogens that are on this planet if we didn't have copper. It's like, oh, wow. It's like, how do you say it so that people will hear you?
I love how you summarize it in that we're really supposed to be creating energy, not exhaust. Right?
Right.
And so I'd say for most people who are listening to this, they know what low energy feels like. And so they've been exploring the avenue around the root cause protocol and studying the effects of copper and iron. So they know what it feels like to have low energy. And this idea that we're producing too much exhaust instead of energy is why we're so tired. And so
Exactly.
it's a very simple summary of what it is that you do.
Yeah, it's just so central. People just need to be a little bit more curious. See, what the thing is, if people were more curious, they would be more furious. If they just knew, if they could scratch the surface of the narrative and come to find out, wow, this copper thing is really, really important. What? No one's talking about it? Wait a minute, that makes me really mad. And they're not having that reaction. Okay, back to your question. So they know that we need vitamin D because it's going to help my immune system. Well, yeah, but there's a difference between suppressing an immune system, which is what hormone D does, and downregulating an immune system, which is what hormone A does. Again, why they refer to these metabolites as vitamins is violently misleading because they're very powerful. And retinol, which becomes retinoic acid, and there's four different retinoic acids. There's all trans, 11 cis, 13 cis, and 9 cis. They're very, very powerful chemicals. And then it can be further broken down into what are called nuclear receptors. And again, all of this knowledge about retinol is completely lost because everyone's so preoccupied with vitamin D. And I refer to it as dementia. Dementia. They can't process anything but I need more D, I need more D, I need more D. And what we were able to prove back in the early days of the magnesium advocacy group is that as you focus on copper, as you focus on lowering your iron footprint, as you focus on increasing your magnesium footprint, the hormone D will always go up. You can do it naturally. You don't need this forced infusion of thousands of IUs, which it's nothing natural about it. And the cornerstone of that thinking was that, and this is beautifully profiled in an article about vitamin D and inflammation. The lead author's name is Meg Mangin, Mangin. She's a nurse, but she's brilliant. And what she points out in the article is that when you have inflammation, your vitamin D will be low. But taking vitamin D is not going to reverse the inflammation. The question that no one's asking is, why do I have inflammation? Well, the biggest trigger for inflammation is too much iron and the inability to recycle it, which is a copper-dependent function. And so they've tricked people into thinking that if you would just take more D, wink, wink, your inflammation would go away, wink, wink, and it doesn't. And if you really want to solve the inflammation, take vitamin A.
Right.
Because it gets iron back into the recycling system and lowers its toxicity in the tissue and in the blood.
That's a great opportunity for us to elaborate a little bit more on the root cause protocol. And I know that you remove a lot of things. We talked about that in a previous show. One of the things you can do to remove from your life in order to help start the balancing process of the minerals is to reduce stress. And that's global thought, and it's hard to get into all the details around stress. But nevertheless, we touched on it in a previous show. And then we talked a lot about retinol and the animal foods that are high in retinol. And of course, we've been scared off of a lot of these foods, whether it's butter, liver, homemade gravy, whatever the case may be. We're not eating these nutrient dense foods that our ancestors would have survived and thrived on. And so we have to return to eating these foods like even beef liver. I know you're a big fan of liver and liver supplements and so on. So these are some sources where we can get some really, really high quality nutrition. The other things that you talk about adding in would be things like real sourced vitamin C, bee pollen, oysters, perhaps mushrooms, nuts, to try and get the copper up through using whole food sources. And so maybe we can touch on some of these factors as well.
Yeah, it's the whole basis of the RCP is to, again, lower the nutrients that are irritants to, or inhibitors to making ceruloplasma. And the whole goal, so there's stops. When it first started, when the RCP first started, probably 2012, maybe 2013, the whole goal of the root cause protocol is to try to simplify. Again, that's the motto. The Marine Corps, simplify, RCP, simplify. And I think at times it unnerves people because they're like, wait a minute, this is too simple. I really think people are put off by the simplicity of it. And that's their problem, I think, because I think Mother Nature is ultimately a very simple design. I really do. And so we've picked out these nutrients like the beef liver, like the yard eggs, like the grass-fed butter, the grass-fed heavy cream, that are historically very rich sources of retinol. And there's a wonderful article by a Dr. McHargue, McHargue. You've never heard of him. I'd never heard of him. He was at the University of Kentucky. And in 1925, he wrote this amazing article that what do those retinol-rich foods attract? Copper! It's not rocket science. But yet, well, no, copper's a toxin and you've got to stay away from it. You need more iron. Please take some vitamin D. And people don't see the game. They don't realize we're being played like a fiddle. And they get very, very worked up about it. But my doctor told me, like, your doctor doesn't know.
These are all diversions. I mean, they did it with fluoride and sugar. The sugar industry needed something to divert the attention away from sugar causing or having something to do with our cavities. And then you have the vitamin D supplement industry, of course. They knew we were going to be spending more time inside, taking us away from the country, putting us into cities, and changing the architecture of the buildings so that we're not outside and we're not getting the sun exposure because the windows are all locked and sealed. So all of these things are diversions to whatever the politicians or the corporations or what have you are planning to do. So yeah, the vitamin D was a pure diversion.
And people, there's a part of all of us that we don't want to believe that we're being manipulated like that. And it's just like, well, I don't know that in our lifetime, I don't know if we'll ever really know what this whole game is about. But I know what's out there is a video game. I get that. Just like the Matrix. And we're here to learn our lessons. And I think even more importantly is learn how to express ourselves in the face of our lessons. And I think one of my biggest challenges isn't finding the information. I think, knock on wood, I think I'm pretty good at finding the information. It's restraining myself from being hyperbolic about it. Like I want to get up on the rooftops and just scream, like, don't you get it? And what I learned from my oldest son is he said, Dad, I didn't hear you in the beginning. You were too passionate. Now that you've mellowed and you're a little calmer about it, he said, it makes so much sense. So that was important feedback for the old man to get. But the key is getting people to be more curious and then be willing to be more furious. We got to change the system. The system is not going to change. I don't think the system will change until the public either steps away and says it's no longer relevant, or steps in and says it's got to change.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And that's not the natural order of things. Is for the public to want to step in and get engaged.
Is there a simple test? Is there a simple test, Morley, that people can do to test to see where their ceruloplasmin is at?
Of course there is, but it's not allowed. It's so painfully simple. And so the Swedish scientist who discovered ceruloplasmin, Holmberg and Laurel, they first identified it in 1941. They first wrote about it in 1944. But the real cornerstone publication was 1948. Imagine waiting 7 years to share something that you know is really important. And then 3 years after that, in 1951, they wrote a very important article about the oxidase properties of ceruloplasma. And what they point out is that this protein expresses different enzyme functions. It's like having a car that can be a boat and a plane and a yacht. And, it can morph into, like a transformer, it can morph into different structures, but express itself through different enzyme functions. And that's really what runs our body, our enzyme functions. The electrons move because enzymes are in play. Food gets digested because of enzymes. All the signaling in our side of our body is enzymes. And what are enzymes? They're just little engines. And so the key is that this master antioxidant protein expresses different antioxidant enzyme activity. Oh, you're iron. I'm going to use the ferroxidase. Oh, you're an amino group. I'm going to use amino oxidase. Oh, you're a phenol group. I'm going to use phenol oxidase. And there are 15 different substrates, 15 different components that it can respond to. And what does oxidase mean? Well, I'm going to use oxygen, and I'm going to change the electron structure of this element and make it worth working with, make it safe to work with. And it's very elegant. And I don't begin to have mastery at it's called physical chemistry, the PChem, the physical chemistry of it. I don't understand that. I just know it's important. I know that this protein, the ceruloplasmin protein, allows us to work with oxygen in a very powerful way. And when iron works with oxygen, it creates rust. And so it's like, that's not complicated. That's not a very complicated concept. Copper works with oxygen cleanly to make things work. Iron causes rust. And iron is a waiter carrying oxygen, very specific functions within the body. But the literature would tell you that iron is so intelligent and is running the body with amazing way. Every step of iron metabolism is copper dependent. Every step. It's like a mother hen watching over its flock. And the little chicks do crazy things, and the mom has to get in and no, do it this way. And that's a very disruptive model for what copper's relationship is with iron. They're
Now,
very different.
can you describe perhaps when people do start the root cause protocol and they've started removing things like stress, again, difficult to describe what stressors they may have, but
Right.
when they start integrating some of these principles, can you describe perhaps what happens initially, short term, midterm, long term, as they apply these principles?
Great question. Wonderful question. The biggest change that people notice is they have more energy. Hands down. Now, again, we don't have a rigorous scientific study where we've got controls and we've got experimental groups, and these people have, chronic fatigue, and these people have cancer, and these people have heart disease. And what did the protocol? We don't do that. This protocol exists to democratize healing, put the individual back in control, get it away from the priests, and just allow people to see how they feel when they're bringing basic natural nutrients back into their body. But the hands down reaction is people have more energy. And we realized we were onto something, an unintended consequence. We realized we were onto something when people were writing into the Magnesium Advocacy Group, which is now called the RCP group. But they were writing in saying, I don't need as much thyroid medication. I don't need any thyroid medication. I can't believe how much energy I've got. And that really began to wake us up that, wow, there must be more to the story. And that really, over time, led to this concept of ignore the enemies, ignite the energy. And so the enemies in our world, in our narrative, conventional world, are heavy metals and toxins and diseases. Oh, you have cardiac disease. Oh, you have diabetes. Oh, you have dementia. I'm so sorry. Those diseases don't exist.
Mm-hmm.
What exists is stress-induced mineral dysregulation, which undermines energy production and creates metabolic dysfunction, which then creates the symptoms that people think is the disease. It's just a symptom of energy dysfunction and the low energy production. And once you start to reverse that, symptoms go away. So energy comes back, but people find pain levels change completely. They find that they, not always, but many people found that they lose weight. Many people find that they are able to digest food the way they've never been able to digest it because they've got the nutrients that are needed. And it's just, again, the body under stress will start to store iron. It's a natural reaction to the stressor, iron.
Now,
And we live
you
in a
recommend
very,
for the excess iron, you recommend donating blood, different for men than for women. Maybe you can discuss a little bit about the bloodletting, if you will, and see what kind of results people get after they donate their blood.
yeah. I get calls from people, as you can imagine. And usually I, I get the calls when people feel like they plateau. Hey, it's not working. Something's wrong. And I only have two questions I ask them. Have you dumped your iron? And have you dumped your fear? And most people haven't done one or the other. And what you need to understand about fear, got to spell it right, Fe-AR. When you're in a state of fear, you become a magnet for iron. Why? Because you're in a sympathetic state. And once you're in a sympathetic state, you just are absorbing iron because adrenaline and cortisol have taken over your metabolism. And we can go into why in subsequent conversations. But the point is, you become a magnet, and then you've got to dump that iron. And the most important thing for people to realize is that there is no mechanism, there is no enzyme pathway, there is no hormone to get rid of excess iron. We are, as we age, we are a magnet for iron. And if you want to know how much iron you have in your body, it's not my idea, it's the work of the leading iron biologists on the planet. Take your age, multiply it times 365, and you're going to get a 5-digit number. And it's going to be a multiple of 3 or 4 times what you think you have in your body. Because the literature would tell you, oh, you should have about 4,000 milligrams of iron if you're a woman, maybe 5,000 if you're a man. According to that formula, what I have is 27,000 milligrams of iron. Well, that's a multiple of 5 times what is considered okay. And I look differently today than I did when I was 20 years old. And it's iron. You know, it's a very simple concept that aging is iron accumulation. It's not my idea. It's the work of people like Denham Harmon, world-renowned physician who was a PhD industrial engineer who became a physician, trained at Stanford. And then the work of David Kalelia and Bruce Ames at Berkeley found out that, wow, there's 10 times more iron in an aging senescent cell than there is in a young cell next to it. 10 times more iron.
I heard a great quote that you talked about with Ray Peat, and we hadn't discussed this. We've already discussed the effect of sunlight, but you talked about a really fantastic quote here from Ray Peat where he said, sunlight is what keeps copper from becoming iron. So nature has answers for us. They're free of charge. We just have to honor them.
Yeah, and if I have any, I have very few regrets in life, but one regret is not being able to ask Dr. Pete, what exactly did you mean by that statement? I think I know what he meant. I think it's the importance of sunlight activating retinol to allow for copper to become bioavailable, to allow iron to recycle and become usable again. But I think it's the most provocative, thoughtful statements I've ever heard in all of my 16 years of doing this work, but I've never been able to verify what did he really mean. But it's like, I think
We
I
all feel
know.
better when we're in the sun, Morley.
Of course we do. Photo modulation, I get it. But here's the part that I think people miss. It's the sunlight hitting folate, which is a B vitamin, B9. It's a copper dependent B vitamin. And I think many of them are. This one I know for a fact is copper dependent. That folate enables retinol to activate the copper pumps, ATP7A and ATP7B, which then allow the body to load up the copper-dependent enzymes in the body, which are really what run the show. And if you don't have the sunlight, you don't activate the retinol. It needs to be broken down into its what are called retinoids. And that's what allows copper to become bioavailable. And that bioavailable copper is what allows iron to be regulated properly in the body. And those additional steps of understanding is what's missing in traditional training in practitioner schools. They don't go the extra mile to explain what's really going on with this sunlight. Oh, it's the sun that's making me feel better. We all do feel better with sunlight. I get that. But what's really going on is the sunlight, the true sunlight inside our tissue, is being brought to you by ceruloplasma. Ceruloplasma is the internal endogenous sunlight that enables energy to be made, enables signaling to take place, and it just totally changes the concept of what does sunlight really do, and what did taking us out of the sunlight do, as you were noting earlier. And I think we just have to realize that I don't believe our maker or Mother Nature would leave us hanging. I think what we're seeking to do with the root cause protocol is get back to the original factory settings. How did the body sustain itself in challenging times? In the winter, picture being up in Europe, in Northern Europe during the winter when there is no sunshine to speak of. I think there's just this mysterious majesty to our design of our body that has been lost in the modern world. So
It has, absolutely. We have to wind down. I know that you have another commitment, and we're going to have a shorter segment today. But before we finish up here, is there something around the testing that we should share with our listeners here today?
well, testing is ever challenging. So I'm 6 feet. How tall are you, Pam?
About 5'8".
Okay, so I'm 4 inches taller than you, which means I'm smarter than you, right? No, it doesn't mean that at all. Height has no bearing on intelligence. So the testing that you can do for bioavailable copper isn't just the serum copper level. You need to look at a whole bunch of factors. We have something called the Full Monty Iron Panel that has 12 different factors. But one of the key factors is serum ceruloplasma, and that's the protein, that's the master antioxidant protein, that should be about 30 units inside our body. And copper should be about 100 units inside our blood. And again, these are not my numbers. These are like Stern, Lieb, and Scheinberg, famous, they were originally at Harvard, hematologists that ended up at Einstein Medical Center. And they did a lot of research in the 60s around what are the right numbers for copper and ceruloplasmin. What's really fascinating about their research, they're professors at Harvard, right? Harvard's up in Cambridge, Massachusetts. where they do the research? At a Bell Laboratories in upstate New York. Why were they researching human copper metabolism in a phone factory? I find it just utterly entertaining that they're doing this research and came up with these definitive numbers about what the number should be. But what the ceruloplasma number tells you, it's serum ceruloplasma. It'll tell you the level of ceruloplasmin in your blood. It's equivalent to your height. And that's useful to know. And then it's useful to know the ratio of copper to ceruloplasmin. Ideally, 100 units of copper, 30 units of ceruloplasmin. The ratio is 3.33. And what I've done is I've made this assertion that the number is logarithmic, just like an earthquake is logarithmic. And so when that number isn't at 3.33, either below it or above it, it's a seismic difference. It has a multiplier effect inside our body. But the part that is entirely missing in the testing is what is the activity, not the level, what is the activity of the ceruloplasmin enzymes? And activity is another way of referring to intelligence, IQ. And so here in the States and most of the world, it is against the law for a commercial lab to allow someone from the public to find out their IQ level for their ceruloplasmin. It is, I think, it's a crime against humanity, to be honest. It's way more offensive than 1984. Because what it reveals is, here's a test. It's a $4 test, Pam.
Wow.
It's a $4 test that would tell you like that. Most people know what their miles per gallon are in their car. And that, I think the equivalency in our body would be, what's our magnesium burn rate? How quickly am I burning through magnesium? Not that there's a test per se, but you just know by how you feel, the symptoms you're experiencing, whether you're churning through magnesium fast or slow, and more stress, more magnesium loss. But the other side of it is, we know our miles per gallon. Most of us know the horsepower of our car. Is it 200? Is it 250? Is it 300? Is it 450? I've had friends in the past who had really powerful cars. They knew exactly how much horsepower they could put out. Or a lot of people do know their IQ, or they're within striking distance of their IQ. Call me crazy, but if I was king for a day and I could rule the planet, I'd want to know what's your IQ, what's your ferroxidase enzyme expression, and what's your weight. Are you within some norm of your weight? Because it tells me how productive you're going to be. And it's not to use it against people. It's to say, it's the first thing they do when you go into the military. They give you an IQ test. They stratify the recruits, and they say, you guys and gals that did really well, you're going to go in intelligence, and you folks over here, you're going to go in KP. No offense, but that's what we're going to take advantage. And I think we should do the exact same thing with ferroxidase and all these other oxidase enzymes. You guys over there, we're going to make you athletes. You folks over here, you need some help. You need some support. And really get people to realize that this isn't a mark of a fate. It's just an indication of where you are. And it can be changed. It can be enhanced. And get people to realize that the body has this innate wisdom, this natural capacity to heal itself if it has the right nutrients. And that's really what the protocol is. Is it easy? No. Is it overwhelming? No. But if you take your time, if you commit yourself that you're going to bring yourself back into balance and just chip away at it, you're going to be pleasantly surprised with how the body responds. I've got two 86-year-old men who have completely transformed their lives.
Wow.
One was in full-blown dementia. He was a former professor at a college in Colorado. He couldn't remember the punchline to the jokes that he used to love to tell. 11 weeks into the protocol, boom, the director of the nursing home called his granddaughter, who had taken my training. She says, "What's in this protocol?" And she said, "Well, why? Is there a problem?" And they said, "No, your grandfather Chester is remembering his punchlines again." 11 weeks. And this guy, his name is Paul, very funny guy. And he was dealing with muscle aches and insomnia and memory issues. And he did the RCP, but he went one step farther. He took a lot of copper. I told him to take one capsule. He took 6 capsules. And it worked in his favor. And I said, how'd you come to that conclusion? He said, "Well, Morley, you told me 2 things. He said, you told me I was in charge, and you told me to take 1 capsule. Well, I decided to take charge and see what would happen if I took 6 capsules. I said, "Well, great. How's that working for you?" He said, "Well, all my memory issues, muscle issues, insomnia, and aches and pains have gone away." That was 12 weeks into the process.
Fantastic.
This isn't months, this isn't years, but the most important variable, and I think this will be a nice way to kind of punctuate our conversation. The most important variable for people to be aware of is if you have access to all the nutrients that enable you to make energy and to restore your homeostasis, do you think your body has the natural ability to make that happen? And if the person says, "Yeah, I do," they're going to get well. But there's a subset of people who have doubt, who have constant questions, who will nitpick at the truth, and they will not reach that state of homeostasis because they keep asking questions, they keep doing their research. And what I typically do with clients is put them on an internet diet for at least 30 to 60 days. Don't go to the internet. Stop researching, because what the constant researching implies is you have doubt. You don't trust your body. You don't believe that your body has this natural ability if it's given the nutrients it needs. And I think it's the most insidious part of society now is this
It's the
constant
paralysis.
need.
I call it the paralysis of analysis, right?
Exactly.
So,
But people suffer from it. And they just need to embrace the fact that the food they've been eating for their whole life has corrupt. It's missing the nutrients by design. And that's a very painful thought. And the nutrients are out there. And is it perfect? No. But it's a whole lot better than we got it in the world of convention. And we just start chipping away at it and regaining our momentum and our homeostasis. So that's really what we're trying to do.
and that's a perfect note to end on. Thank you so much, Morley, again, for joining me in this 3-part series. With any luck, maybe I can schedule some time with you to do another
I would
series
love
of
it.
podcasts, but I've taken up a
Yeah.
lot of your time already, so I'll give you a little bit of a break.
No, it's been a delight. I've really enjoyed it, and I look forward to our ongoing conversation.
I'll see what I can do maybe to set up another chat, maybe another
Okay,
month or so as people digest this
that'd be great.
information.
Yeah,
As I do with every show, I put your contact information below in the show notes. And so if people need to reach out to you, they can look there for resources. Let's just keep in touch. And again, thank you so much for all the wonderful work that you're doing. And thank you so much for your time.
thank you so much, Pam. Appreciate it.
Thank you for taking your precious time to listen to today's podcast. For more information about my health coaching services, feel free to visit my website, www.pamkilleen.com. That's KILLEN. And there you'll find many articles, podcasts, and more information about my health coaching services. I'm also on Substack. And finally, to finish, here is the disclaimer. The information on this podcast is for educational purposes only and is not intended as medical advice. We are not licensed healthcare providers, and our content is not a substitute for professional medical diagnosis, advice, or treatment. For personalized health guidance, or if you have specific medical concerns, please consult a qualified medical professional. They can assess your individual health needs and offer recommendations tailored to you. By listening to our podcast, you agree to this disclaimer. We assume no responsibility or liability for actions taken based on the information provided herein.